Welcome to Shape Makers, the podcast series from the Aluminum Extruders Council. AEC is a trade organization representing over 75% of the aluminum extrusion production in North America. In this series, you'll hear about key issues that affect both extruders and suppliers in the industry, as well as those who specify and use aluminum extruded products. Our guest speakers will discuss in-depth topics like aluminum extrusion, fair trade cases, what the industry is doing to attract and retain skilled workers, how extrusion products are rising to the challenge of stricter building and energy codes, the rise of extrusion use in vehicles, and much more. So sit back, relax, get comfortable, and get ready to learn more about aluminum extrusion.
I'm Jason Weber, the president of the AEC, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Mark Butterfield, president of Pennex Aluminum and the chairman of the AEC. We're excited to spend some time with you today talking about one of our favorite events of the year, the Aluminum Summit. And actually, it's not of the year. We only do the Aluminum Summit every 4 years, if you remember. And the last time we did the Aluminum Summit was in 2021, which was in Nashville. But this Aluminum Summit is coming up in September in Atlanta, and it's a place where our industry comes together to learn, share ideas, and connect. We'll walk you through some of the great workshops, focus sessions, networking opportunities, and of course, our big closing keynote speaker with Gene Marks that you're not going to want to miss. So with that, I welcome Mark. And how are you doing today?
Good, Jason. Great to be on here. Excited to talk about the summit. Just in preparation for the discussion today, I was just looking at some of the key highlights, on the event overview, and it's really going to be an outstanding event. As you said, we only do the summit every 4 years. But when you look at the high-level overview of it, it's really 3 days of great networking, a lot of information that's going to be shared. There's 24 anodizing and extrusion sessions that are going to take place. That's tremendous. With the general sessions and everything that's packed in there, I know that we're going to talk about that in detail, but just like any AEC event, it would be a tremendous networking event as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you said, we'll talk about a lot of these things in more detail, but not only do we have the general sessions, the focus sessions, we have, of course, the team and committee meetings that are going to start on Monday and finish up on Tuesday. We have, the Summit Expo, as well as, a bunch of sponsorship opportunities for the suppliers and really anyone who wants to sponsor. So I think overall the program has really come together very well. Maybe before we dive a little bit into what the summit is, could you give me, of course, you've been around for a long time. This would probably be, I'm guessing, which would be your third summit, because I think the first time we did Aluminum Summit was actually in 2015 or 2016, something like that. So what, you as an extruder and as an executive for an extrusion company, what are you looking to really get out of this?
Well, I think, every event is a great learning experience, regardless of where you are within the organization that you're representing, whether you're new to the industry or if you've been there for a while. I think everyone takes some value from it. I think the networking is really beneficial from my perspective. Both, colleagues, other extruders that are in our industry. It's great to speak with them, understand the challenges of our industry, understand, some opportunities that we can all come together on. And I think that's what's really positive about and the membership there is we often come together to support the industry as a whole. And I think that that's going to take place at this summit, with things like fair trade and all of the volatility associated with the tariffs. I think that's on everyone's minds. And I'm looking forward to, better understanding the perspectives from other members and how they're approaching it and risk mitigation strategies around that. And then it's always great to talk to the suppliers. That's the other part of this summit is the suppliers, the expo that we will have there, the opportunity to speak with them, understand what new technology is out there and what they see in the future. So a little bit of everything, with the summit because there's so many attendees from different aspects of our industry.
No, it really is powerful. It'll be, we're expecting around 300, total between the AC and the AEC. So it should end up being, well, definitely we will be bigger than a typical AEC event like the management conference or the annual conference that we do. So again, looking at, having the opportunity to really bring a big chunk of the aluminum industry together. Like I say, it's the most important part of the aluminum industry, right?
Yeah,
suppliers are important and producers are important, but without the extruders or the anodizers that are taking that raw material and turning it into something, it really doesn't work. So that's great. Yeah. So I guess, the typical way I think about it, being a long time, salesperson, is always kind of that use case. And why do you want to use it? It's not that we don't hold back on what we do in the EC, throughout the year and wait for these events to do it out. We do sprinkle it in every so often. But there are things like this that enable us the opportunity to really have a lot different speakers, points of view, even new information that'll be coming in through, especially some of the breakout sessions that are going to happen, because we're going to be talking about, there's AI, there's sessions on using, data. Of course, we have some very specific marketing, industry promotion related sessions. Michael Tedesco, who works on our apprenticeship program, is also going to be presenting there. So it's just a wide variety, and the ability to mix and match on kind of what you want your experience to be is definitely a good opportunity. But enough of that. We'll get into a little bit more of the kind of the nuts and bolts of everything. The Aluminum Summit really kicks off on Monday, with our first set of team meetings. We'll also be hosting the Extrusion Excellence Workshop. That is on Monday. The AEC has put that on, typically once a year, I would think, definitely around ET time. So this would be the first opportunity to do that since last year. I don't know, not to put you on the spot, but have you ever attended a Extrusion Excellence Workshop before?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're always well done. The agenda items are, every aspect of your process. When you think about what's going to be covered, it starts with the alloys, the foundation of really our business and where our end customers get value from, in product performance. But we're going to be talking about extrusion alloys in there, the mechanical properties, standards, quench sensitivity of alloys, aging practices, tempers, all the fundamental things around the material side. Then we'll also be talking about the metallurgy, right? Microstructure, in a way that anyone, whether you're just getting started in the industry or if you've been in the industry for a while, you'll be able to understand and get a feeling for how microstructure is developed within the process. How homogenization can impact that, how extrusion process parameters and the inputs can change that, which is very important for us as extruders. We'll talk about extrudability in that class. How do you utilize limit diagrams as an example? A very effective tool, needs to be well understood within all of our operations to optimize that process. We'll talk about metal flow, and everything associated with that and the importance of it and the parameters that impact it. We'll talk about extrusion dies, quality assurance, new technology, all this packed into one course. I mean, if you're in the extrusion business and you're part of that process, you will definitely get value from that course. I assure you of that.
Yeah. Wojciech does a wonderful job, and he's going to be presenting, yet again. And like you said, I mean, there's so many opportunities and so much information, that you can get out of these. And I think, in my experience throughout the years being involved, from the extruder side in the AEC first, and now, working for the AEC, I get something out of everything. And of course, I came from the sales side, so not hardcore manufacturing manager like you, but still, I always took the opportunity, if it fit within my schedule, to even sit in on some of those more manufacturing based, programs, because even as a salesperson, that taught me something, right? why can't we do this or why can't we do that? And so being able to learn that even from the commercial aspect of it is extremely important. Not to say that we want a bunch of commercial people signed up for the Extrusion Excellence Workshop, but that's another reason why we do these things. So I think that's important, just to continue your career and your career development and learning. One thing, as I'm basically relatively new for the AEC, this is my first year as president, but obviously I had about a year and a half prior to becoming president, is as we continue to evolve the program of the AEC and really trying to bring a holistic approach or link things together. So one, we can utilize everybody's time more efficiently. So give you what you want when you want it. But the other thing is sometimes combining these things together, really starts to paint, a different picture. Because if you're just onto extrusion, let's say making your press run as fast as you can, the dead cycle time and ram speed and all that, but your dies aren't up to snuff, or your alignment isn't up to snuff, or all of these things that happen within that whole process, it's still not going to provide the benefit that you thought it was if you focus on one thing, because it really is. It's a continuum of the entire process from the producers, to the equipment suppliers, to how you manage your equipment, the downstream equipment, what's happening in the in the age ovens, and then even starting to get down into more of the surface finishing, whether it's painting, anodizing, or fabrication. So it all has to come together to make sure that extrusion operation is as efficient as it's going to be. So again, that was big word salad of, if you don't take advantage of what the AEC is offering, you're really missing out.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, Jason, really our focus, and this is the advantage that we have with a summit like this, of bringing the finishers and the extruders together. What is our focus? How do we protect our industry? How do we grow our industry? How do we scale it? And how do we assure ourselves that aluminum is going to remain the material of choice and the extrusion process the choice of our end customers? And in order to do that and to grow and scale, our businesses, we need to make sure that we are highly optimized in our processes. We have to be very efficient. We have to provide a higher degree of value to our customers at a lower and more competitive cost than our other competitors, meaning other materials. And the way that you do that is through people and the development of our people within our organizations, the development of the people within our industry, the growth in technology. And the way that you do that, first and foremost, is to understand it and understand the opportunities and benchmark yourself against the rest of the industry so that you can understand where you're at and where your opportunities are to grow and develop. And a lot of that is wrapped up in 3 days in Atlanta. It truly is. And, we were just talking about the Extrusion Excellence course. Where else can you go to get that kind of information that starts and goes through starts with the alloys, but goes through the entire process stream? I don't know where you would go to get that type of course. So I'm excited about it. I think it's really good. As you know, I love our industry. I want to see it grow. And I think it requires this type of offerings from the AEC and the finishing anodizing teams to be able to do that.
Yeah. So then kind of along that same thread, so the core of the Aluminum Summit kicks off on Wednesday. First is the general session. What excites you about that first day of the general session?
Well, I think it's pretty diverse, right? So on Wednesday, you're going to hear from subject matter experts, whether it be safety, and how do we keep our teams safe? How do we keep our plants safe? Some great presentations there. We're going to have some HR committee updates. All right. So if hiring and retaining team members is important to you, I think you're going to get value there. There's going to be discussions around sustainability, fair trade, and tariffs, like we talked about when we kicked off. There's so much volatility there. There's so much that we don't know. I think Robert and that team is going to be bringing a lot of great information that I think we'll all find very useful. Ducker Carlisle is going to be providing some updates relative to the market study that was done with the anodizers, and I think that will be tremendous. Ducker and that team always does a great job. And that's just in the general session on Wednesday. That's just where it starts. So I think everyone will find value of what comes out of that general session.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we move right from the general session into basically the focus sessions. And kind of going back to, what we were talking about, the Extrusion Excellence Workshop, there is one track for the AEC portion of the breakout sessions that's just a finishing workshop. Because realizing that, right, most extruders, participate in finishing on some level, whether you have your own in-house, anodized line or paint lines, but you'd surely probably, have outsources for those. So, that I think that track right there is something that the finishing team has been curating for a little while. So there's going to be a lot of good discussion there, and a lot of good information, Also, we have the management and the business improvement track. That's where we're getting into utilizing data, the data that's, coming out of the management systems for the equipment. And we have some discussion on AI with a gentleman from Georgia Tech. That's going to be very, very cool. I'm hopefully going to be able to sit in on that one. Really interested in what he has to say. But there will also be an overview of coming up in November. At the beginning of November is going to be the Advanced Die Clinic and the Process Optimization Workshop. So another, opportunity for training. But again, as I kind of mentioned a little bit before, whereas the AEC would have normally done a die clinic and like maintenance as separate, what we did this past April was we actually put those together with a basic die clinic and press maintenance. So now we've done that in November for press optimization and advanced die clinic. So although, one price it can get you into both if you want to stay for all 4 days. We still offer separate registrations for each event. But if you do want to participate in all 4 days, you can go one time to one place and get all of that information at one time. And I think that's some of the most important things that we can do as the AEC is really, make the AEC easy to use. So enough about that. I kind of digress a little bit sometimes. We do have so many things going on, and this fall is going to be, very busy. The Aluminum Summit is the biggest part of it, but, there's other things coming too, and definitely looking forward to planning what 26 is going to look like from the clinic and workshop standpoint. So is there anything, within those breakout sessions that you're keen on, maybe besides for trade, because there will be a trade breakout session?
Yeah, no, I think you hit on it, Jason. I think it's track 4 is the finishing workshop. I mean, when you look through that and you look through the agenda, there's something for everyone who's associated with, the finishing side of our business, which is absolutely critical, right? That's how we provide more value to the end customers, is by being able to finish our product at a very high level. So it's ideal, if you're looking at how do you improve your quality or how do you improve your efficiency in the finishing side of the business. So, a great agenda there. You talked a little bit about track 5 and the management and business side and that agenda. I would summarize that as if you're interested in operational excellence or optimization or improving your business, there's something in there for you. We talked about it, right? AI. Another thing that's going to come out, I believe, in that track is all of the great work that Shane and that committee has done on the EPD. We hear so much about sustainability, and in order to be able to, have credibility, that tool is absolutely crucial. And that team's done a lot of great work. And And there's an opportunity within that track to better understand it, and how do you utilize that within your own business. And that's part of the value of being a member within the AEC. And then I think it's track 6 is industry intelligence. We can all benefit from that, and all the work that's taking place by the teams that'll be presenting there. Ducker is going to be presenting another study that's being done relative to the markets and where that market demand is going to come from, and a little bit about our industry. And I think that's important to all of us. So, across those tracks, like we mentioned before, just tremendous value.
Yeah. Looking forward. I've already had a little bit of a preview of the Ducker and the data that they're gathering, and it is quite something. And I wouldn't say we haven't talked about it within the AEC, but it hasn't been one of those things that we've kind of been trumpeting, out there. But it is, going back to, I think it was 2022, we did the Ducker study on EV. Obviously, the EV market is changing. So also the opportunity within I guess it's the overall changes within the automotive market, and how does lightweighting still play into even ICE vehicles? Obviously, there is AV. What is going on with, let's say, the limited ramp that there's been so far in the EVs? How does that change? It sounds like there's more, tendency now to go more towards hybrids than, EVs. So I don't want to I'm not going to steal their thunder, because they'll definitely talk about it better than I will. But it is really something that will prove some benefits. And not only for those extruders that participate in the automotive market, but we have added in there additional components for basically commercial transportation. So heavy truck, trailer, a variety of different types of trailers. So that's all been part of the study. And this is just hopefully the first of those. And as we go through the next years, we're going to add additional, let's say, modules onto, the study to begin to really build a very holistic view of what the market is in North America for that. So that's very exciting. So, Thursday, we'll go into another general session. We can't get out of, some kind of conference or something without doing these general sessions. But, the last thing, the general session, is something a person I'm very excited about, is Gene Marks. And you may have already seen, we've been kind of throwing some things out, especially on LinkedIn on the closing keynote. We did, a lot of work in making sure that we sourced the right keynote speaker for this event. Given, all of the issues in there, one of the things, and I've had several conversations with Gene, is what do I do? I think we can all understand, we can all look at GDP, or we can look at, employment numbers, but what does that mean? Or not only what does that mean, but what else can I be looking at? And I think that's what Gene brings in. He brings more of that, small, medium-sized business approach to not only what's going on in the economy, what's going on with taxes, obviously with some changes in taxes coming up. So really getting down, I think, for me, at a very granular level, and being able to talk, about kind of the current condition of everything. So, he's very, very much into making sure that everybody that hears him speak has those key takeaways and things that you can do with your business to work on your business and make it better. So that's kind of my elevator pitch. I don't know what your thoughts are on Gene, Mark.
Yeah, Jason, I think you kind of summarized it in the sense that it's forward looking. It's what are those leading indicators? How do you understand what's being presented to you and navigate that? There's a lot of volatility in the economy and with the workforce and regulatory landscape that we're all dealing with in businesses. And I think Gene brings an opportunity for us to understand his perspective on how to navigate that by understanding what is coming and forward look versus, analyzing what has taken place in the past. So looking forward to it as well as you. I know that there was a lot of work that went into making sure we had the right keynote speaker, and I think you did a tremendous job. And I think everyone is going to benefit from his.
Yeah. So with that would, that basically wraps up the summit. After Gene, make sure you stick around because there will be a prize drawing. We always got to do the prize drawings to make sure people stick around. But it really, at the end of the day, it should be an excellent event. We mentioned before a little bit, we will have the aluminum marketplace, and that's happening. I think in total, we probably only have 2 or 3 slots left in the marketplace. So that's been a huge success so far in getting suppliers in to do that. We're also offering, there will be Take Fives, which has usually been the normal, let's say, part of the program for the fall conference that we typically do, but we've integrated those with the Aluminum Summit as well. So it gives suppliers basically 5 minutes, to talk about them and their companies. We still have sponsorship packages available. Those we've done very well at selling some, but there's still some available. So if you're, a supplier or even an extruder member, you want to, elevate yourself a little bit more at the conference, those are basically open to all members. So again, we're looking for a tremendous, event, and it should be really good. So I guess, with that, I would leave it up to you to kind of, summarize it from the leadership and the membership perspective and give some final thoughts.
Yeah, just going back to the suppliers that are going to be there, we as extruders and anodizers and finishers, we wouldn't be successful if we didn't have great suppliers. And I think that we see that at each of our events is that that supply base comes together, whether it's our material suppliers, making sure that we have the right material that's keeping up with the needs of our customers, or if it's the equipment that we need to be competitive and produce, our products at the quality level that meets the expectations of our customers, or services in general, right? There's a lot of different suppliers that help, whether it's in business management or other aspects, technical consulting, whatever it may be. We have great suppliers within our industry, and we're fortunate to have them. This is a great opportunity for them to demonstrate that and demonstrate, what they have to offer. And it's a great opportunity for the extruders and anodizers to be able to hear from them. So bringing that all together is great for our industry as a whole. To summarize it, I would say that if you look at the bookends, the start to the finish of this event, I'm super excited about it. I think it's packed with more information, more diversity. It's hitting the key needs of our industry, more so than any other event. And I've been doing it for 30 some years. And I think it's going to be the most impactful event that we've had at the right time with what we're dealing with. I encourage everyone, if you haven't registered, or if you haven't made plans, please do so, and think broad within your business. Our industry is changing, and, we're losing a lot of great talent, retirements and whatever it may be. We need that next generation. We need that succession plan for not only for our business, but for our industry. And in order for that to happen, we need more exposure to all the things that we're going to be talking about here at this event. And so I would encourage, let's think broader within our organizations, and let's start to bring this next generation in so that we can be successful in the long term. And again, this is a great opportunity to do just that.
Excellent. Nobody does it better than you. You summarize very well.
No, I appreciate the work that everyone's doing, the AAC and the AEC and the work that you're doing, Jason. And, again, looking forward to seeing you in Atlanta.
I'm looking forward to seeing everyone as well. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.